Indeed, your efforts are diverse. Your efforts as human beings are diverse. Now let me ask you, if you were to ask any creation on the face of this globe, you were to ask humans, and if you could speak to animals, if you could ask an animal, if you ask a cat, if you ask a dog, if you ask a lion, you ask anybody who's a human, the mankind race, you ask Pakistani, you ask Arab, you ask anybody. Ask them, ultimately, what is your ultimate goal? What is your ultimate goal? If you could have one thing, what would be your ultimate goal? And if they were honest with you, they would say that our ultimate goal is contentment. We want happiness. We want peace. And would you disagree that everything that you have sought for in this life is a means to achieve a happiness that is eternal? But strangely, in this surah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala states that your efforts, while the goal is the same, your efforts are not the same. They're diverse. Because if you're to look at population today, in the 21st century, you look at some humans, they believe that their goal to happiness is through what? Is through wealth. They think that the accrual of a large amount of financial sustenance will guarantee them happiness, prosperity, and peace. And then you were to ask another group of people, you ask them, well, what brings you happiness? And they would say, power, or status, prestige. This brings us happiness. And if you ask a third group of people, what brings you happiness? They will say that our desires, intoxication, losing ourselves to alcohol and drugs and intoxicants brings us this peace that cannot be met by anything else. Now, if you were to ask each and every one of these groups, ask them, now you have had some time to partake in this avenue towards your peace. Have you arrived at your destination? Have you come to that final destination that you sought after? And if they were honest with you, they would say no. Verily, we want more. We want more because this is not enough. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala states this many times in the Quran, that peace and happiness can only be achieved through Him. There was a stat in 2014, the University of Sydney, they did a study of 12,665 musicians and stars. So people who had prestige, they had fame. And they found that the chances of these musicians and stars dying from unnatural causes are 5 to 10 times greater than the general population. Which means what? Which means suicide. Which means death through intoxication. Unnatural causes. Things that were not, didn't put them out of their homeostasis by natural means. Another study conducted by the American Journal of Preventive Medicine, physicians, as reported, have the highest suicide rate among any professional group. If you look at all the professional groups, physicians, doctors, have the highest suicide rate per professional group. Now, in terms of profession, if you were to look at the profession with the most amount of money, well, that would be physicians, right? By a certain group. Yet, interestingly enough, the likelihood to commit suicide and to end your own life out of unhappiness apparently falls within the group that has the most amount of money. So there must be a disconnect there. What is that disconnect? By converse, one may assume that by not having money, you are going to be happy. One may think this. Why? Because there may be examples in the seerah that may give this way. For example, you look at the story of Uthman ibn Affan, one of the most wealthy individuals, who gave up all his money for sadaqah at many points of his life. You look at the Prophet ﷺ. One day, he's sitting down with Angel Jibreel alayhi salam, and the sky splits open. And Angel Jibreel alayhi salam, he kind of cowers a little bit. He goes down, he lowers his head. And the Prophet ﷺ is saying, who is this being that Angel Jibreel alayhi salam is lowering his head to? Because verily, I have never seen anyone who he is scared of. I've never seen any being. This angel has, put an end to civilizations. So who on earth is he scared of? Well, this being that comes from the sky comes up to the Prophet ﷺ and he says, would you rather be a ruler, a prophet who is a ruler, or would you rather be a prophet who is poor? Which one would you rather be? And the Prophet ﷺ picked the latter. He said, I would rather be a prophet who is among the common folk, not somebody who is a ruler. And as soon after he says that, this being goes back into the sky, and the sky just puts itself back together. And the Prophet ﷺ asks Angel Jibreel, he says, who was that? I've never seen you scared of anybody. Who was that you were so scared of? He says that this being was actually Angel Israfil. And he had come down, and I have never seen him come down before. And I thought that the world was about to end, which is why he came down. That his job of blowing the horn for the day of judgment is over, and he was all going to put us to our decree. But eventually that was not the case. Ever since then, the Prophet ﷺ, whenever he used to eat, he would always be a little hunched when he used to eat. Never to boast how much food he had or how much wealth he had. He acted in modesty. Now here's the thing. Naturally, we are preconceived to think that perhaps wealth may lead to unhappiness, but here's the flaw in that thinking. If we do not remember where the wealth comes from, then for sure we will be unhappy. For sure we will be depressed. All of these statistics that you see, likelihood, majority, people who had this wealth, they forgot where this wealth came from, and thus they were ungrateful. There is a beautiful verse in the Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about Sulaiman alayhi salam. And Sulaiman alayhi salam, as we know, inherited a kingdom from his father, Dawood alayhi salam. And he was the richest of the rich. And so what did he do? He goes to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says, قال رب اغفر لي وهب لي ملكا لا ينبغي لأحد من بعدي إنك أنت الوهاب. Oh my Lord, forgive me. Grant me a kingdom such that it will not be befitting of anyone after me, and indeed you are the bestower. Indeed you are the bestower. Now, this sounds a little inappropriate to some extent if you were to view it from a little perspective. I have a lot of youth that come up to me, right? They say, Bilal, I'm pursuing a degree in engineering, okay? I'm pursuing a degree in medicine, but I don't feel it's Islamic enough. I don't feel good about it. I don't feel like there's too much deen into it. Why do they say this? Because they see examples of their older generations who have committed so much to these professions that they become so caught up with their work that it seems as though they're depressed. And it seems as though they're not fulfilling that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has asked them to fulfill. So they say, we don't want to go through this field. We want to study the deen. We want to leave the dunya out. We want to study the deen. This verse is in direct contradiction to that thought. Why? Because Sulaiman alayhi salam, he had everything. He had all that you could have. One of his main feats was that he could talk to animals. He could talk to jinn. He had the largest kingdom that was probably ever recorded. And when he made dua, he says, Ya Allah, not only do I want the largest kingdom now, but if anybody were to come after me, make sure that they don't even have as large of a kingdom as I have. So you may ask, well, why? Why did he do this? All prophets, they have different characteristics. Sulaiman alayhi salam, among others, had the characteristics of governance. He knew how to govern. How is that so? Well, his father Dawood alayhi salam and Adam alayhi salam were the only two referenced in the Quran as Khalifa. Only two referenced in the Quran as Khalifa. Sulaiman alayhi salam grew up in this lifehood where he was raised among those who were governing the land. And so he understood the ruling of governance. The same dua could not be made applicable to someone named Qarun because, of course, that would not be the same. You would not get the same benefits from this. The point number two is some of us have different strengths and weaknesses. Some of us have different strengths and weaknesses. If you look at the different prophets in the history of Islam, some were given tasks that others weren't. For example, when Musa alayhi salam was sent to talk to Fir'aun, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told him that when you go speak to Fir'aun, speak to him kindly. Speak to him kindly, even though he was the most hated dictator of all history. You know, when you say that, subhanAllah, this dictator is tough, this man is horrible, I guarantee you that he wasn't worse than Fir'aun. Do you want to know why? It's because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, He has listed the extremes of each category. Verily, there will be a dictator that is not worse than the worst dictator that was mentioned, and you will not have a man that is more righteous than the most righteous man, or the Prophet ﷺ. So anything that you deal with will fall in between these two extremes. So when Fir'aun was met with Musa alayhi salam, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent Musa alayhi salam to Fir'aun, did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not know that Musa alayhi salam had a lisp on his tongue? Did he not know that he couldn't talk well? He knew this. Did he not know that Musa alayhi salam had committed an unintentional murder and thus was expelled from the land? So the moment that he steps foot in the land, the whole, police would siren for his capture. Did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not know this? Of course he did. Yet he still put him to the test, much like every single one of us. When we're put with a certain test and trial in our life, a lot of the times we say, that trial is too big to complete. We don't know how we're going to overcome this struggle. It seems like this test is too much for us to bear. Yet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows exactly what it is you're going through, and He is the only one who can get you out of this. And before I conclude for the next half, Sulaiman alayhi salam made this dua because he knew that governance for him, it didn't affect him the way it affected other people. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would answer his dua. When Yunus alayhi salam was stuck in the belly of a whale, 10,000 miles in the bottom of the sea, when he made dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he understood that no matter how many search parties are sent out to look for him, no matter if they had X-ray vision, if they had the best cameras, there was no way that anybody would find Yunus alayhi salam. Why? You're in the middle of the night. You're in the middle of the ocean. Not only are you in the middle of the ocean, you're at the bottom of the ocean. Not only are you in the bottom of the ocean, but you're in the middle of the belly of a whale. And so Yunus alayhi salam said that he knew that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala got him in this situation, and so only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala could take him out. So his dua was curtailed toward this. And so was Sulaiman alayhi salam's. So inshallah in the next half of the khutbah I will bring this all together and hopefully provide some lessons that we can apply in our own daily lives. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله ولكم. Alhamdulillah wassalatu wassalam wa ala rasulillah. So, alhamdulillah, there are many lessons that we may learn from this dua of Sulaiman. The number one being that whatever it is that you want to ask for, you can ask for it, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will grant it to you. That is what this dua is all about. He says, give me the biggest kingdom, not the mediocre kingdom, the biggest one. And when I do get that kingdom, make sure nobody else can match that kingdom. But a lot of scholars, they've analyzed this dua. And many of them have offered the analysis that one of the main reasons why Sulaiman alayhi salam made this dua was as a means for his sadaqah jariyah, was as a means for the charity that he would benefit from after his passing. Now when we think of sadaqah jariyah, what do we think of? We think of, number one, first thing that comes to our mind, we'll donate to the masjid, right? We'll donate to this cause. We'll donate to that cause. Let me tell you one thing, and inshallah I want to close with this message. That one of the biggest conflicts in our ummah is the fact that many of us, we have this preconceived notion that sadaqah jariyah can only be met through financial means. It can only be met through financial means. I tell you, brothers and sisters, that this is actually contrary to trueness. I teach Saturday school at the Islamic Center of Hawthorne. And subhanAllah, every week I have kids coming up to me and they behind closed doors. And they say, Bilal, is this permissible? Is that permissible? Can I do this? Can I talk to the opposite gender? Can I go on this date? Can I go to this party? What do I do when I'm interacted with these type of, intoxicants, these alcohol? What do I do? When I'm put in this situation, how am I supposed to act? They ask me these questions. And one thing I've come to learn is that these children don't necessarily have an outlet anywhere else. And so they have been pretty much blocked off from asking anybody else that would make them feel a little uncomfortable. So the safest place they have to ask these questions are somebody that probably won't judge them, probably only sees them once a week, and it's behind closed doors. So their parents can't hear them, their adult authorities cannot hear them, nobody can hear what they have to say, yet they desire for the answers for these questions. This tells us what? That our ummah as a whole is moving towards a time where we need all of our efforts, not monetary efforts only, but our active efforts to put in instilling a program, a community, an ummah that will sustain us through the times ahead. Because the nature of Muslims in America is not the same anymore. The ideal, the common, we'll give money and we'll let that money go. SubhanAllah, I know so many people, they give donations and they give charity and they say, I'm going to donate 75% of this market share of this charitable organization. Make sure you put my name on the banner. SubhanAllah, all right? I'll give it, but make sure my name is the largest on the banner and make sure that everybody knows that I gave the most to this contribution. This type of thinking, it will not work anymore. It will not work anymore. It requires every single one of us to put in our own effort. Every one of us is different. Every one of us has a skill, has an asset that we can all provide to this community. When I look at this community right here, it is a lot different, a lot more people than the 182nd right across the street, right? Still 182nd Street, right? Right across the street where we had a little musalla, maybe 2 or 3 lines. SubhanAllah, look at the community is growing. Brother Muhammad Hussein, every week I see on Facebook, he's posting videos of community breakfasts and community gatherings. These are all vital into understanding that our ummah will not build by a few minority of the community. It is a collective effort that will be required from all members of the community, and you will only get what you put into this community, inshallah. So this can be exemplified all throughout the Quran, but as my message to you, please do not let this go in one ear and go out the next. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين وأقيموا الصلاة.